So if I was going to summarize the number one thing that gets in the way of guys' success, it's pretty obvious. It's a lack of focus. Now, everyone's heard this before. You got to focus, right? You got to make sure that you are doubling down on a set of small goals and really move the needle on them, stick to them consistently, and then over time, you will reap the rewards, okay? It's about as clear as day. Everyone knows that formula, but everybody has trouble following it. Why? Well, there's all kinds of reasons. There's deep reasons, reasons associated with self-worth, which we talk about here. Basically, most guys, they associate their worth with their status. And as soon as they're trying, they're being aware of their status. They're like, oh shit, I'm deficient here, 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 and here. And they can't stand that. And so they try and fix all those areas all at once. And this leads to overwhelm. This leads to someone who tries to build 1 million habits all at once, and they end up building 0 habits and relapsing into old patterns almost immediately, right? Or they just think about it and they think about, oh, wow, that's going to be really hard. They think about changing their life and it just sounds difficult. And so they don't even start, right? They never actually even start the process of focusing because they just assume that they can't. And I think a lot of this comes down to our intense resistance of being able to look at something, decide that it's important, decide that it needs to get changed, but then put it on the back burner. Because that's what focus demands. Focus demands that you say, hey, I'm going to prioritize this subset of things, this small amount of things, and then not worry about all these other things. Most of the time when guys are really trying to improve their lives, they're not actually focusing because they're not doing the other part. They're looking at everything. They're saying it all matters and I'm going to fix it all. That's not focus. That's just impractical. That's just a recipe for failure. And so how do we overcome this, right? Well, you gotta embrace your dignity. Okay, that's kind of like a foundational thing in all my work. You got to recognize that, hey, just because this, and this thing are bad doesn't mean that you're bad. All right, your worth is separate from those things. So let's assume you've got that. Let's assume you've decided to embrace your inherent worth. The next big thing is that you have to learn how to deal with what I call the back burner anxiety. It's the anxiety that comes up when you take inventory of your life. You say, hey, this thing's important, but I'm not going to work on it right now. And you put it on the back burner. You say, all right, I'm going to put this away for now. And instead I'm going to focus over here. And then we have these little FOMO circuits in our brain that just feel like, but this thing over here, I'll see this all the time with guys quitting porn. They'll want to be getting in a relationship. And we want them to get in shape and all this kind of stuff. And, while they realize, okay, I can't do all of that right now. I'm just trying to quit porn right now. I can't worry about dating. It's triggering the dating apps, the swiping, the potential rejections, the potential sex, all this kind of stuff. It's just too much for me to handle while I'm quitting porn. So I'm going to put it on the back burner. But all the while they're going through their reboot, they're constantly worrying about the girls that they're not getting, constantly thinking about it, constantly feeling upset over it, constantly feeling inadequate over it, or maybe it's just some other goal. Maybe it's some certification they want for work, or they want to get in shape or whatever it is, but they're not focusing on it right now. And but they keep wringing their hands about it and staying up late, being anxious about it. And I think one of the big things that you have to learn how to do is to actually take an anxiety and just relax it. It's not repression. It's saying, hey, I see you, but guess what? We're not going to worry about that right now. We're actually just not going to. And we're not going to because we actually don't need to. It's not relevant right now. We will get to it. It's not repression. It's not like you're pretending not to see it. It's just that what I've found is that all narratives that create an emotional charge, they can either be in an active state or a dormant state. All right. And so it's there is an internal skill that can be developed where you can feel a narrative, right? You can feel a narrative in its active state. So maybe the narrative is, oh, I really want a girlfriend. Okay. You can feel it. You can feel that longing. But guess what? You can also store it. People have this image of bottling up emotions as a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. You have to learn how to bottle emotions. But what, the difference between bottling emotions and just repressing them is that when you repress them, you're just throwing them in the cabinet and not trying to never look at them. Okay, what I'm talking about is that you intentionally store the emotions, regularly take them out, open them up, see if they've gone bad, see if they need to be like, cleaned or, optimized or something. And then you put them, back away. Like there is a way to store emotions where you say, all right, yes, we want to date right now, but guess what? We're not going to date at this moment. We're not going to. And we're going to relax that emotional charge, tell ourselves it's okay. We don't need to feel this right now. And then we go and we put it on the shelf. And every once in a while, maybe it's going to start shaking and rattling. And guess what? We got to take it off the shelf, open it back up, hear what it has to say. And then we got to check, is it appropriate for us to keep putting off dating? If it's not, well then, you take it out and you start working with it. You start acting on it. But if it is appropriate to still put it off, bottle it back up, put it back on the shelf. That is healthy emotional management. That is not repression. And this is the thing that you have to learn how to do if you want to be able to focus. And what you can tell yourself is like, listen, I am working toward that. You can take that emotional energy in some regard of like those future things you're not doing, and you can actually like embrace that energy and put it into what you're doing now so that you can just keep in a linear path, right? Where you're just knocking down one big main objective at a time. And it's just like, give yourself permission to do it. And in order to have that permission, in order to really feel free, is you have to actually give yourself permission to drop the guilt. Like if you think about it, like prioritization and focus is just really well done procrastination. It's very intentional procrastination. And just get good at that. Get good at allowing things to not be what you're focusing on, not feeling the emotion, but also not forgetting about it. That's what repression is. Repression is like refusing to even open up that bottle of emotion in the first place, right? And repression is allowing it to sit in the cabinet until it, rots and makes, explodes and spills out into the room and fucks everything up, okay? We're not doing that, okay? We are maintaining a conscious inventory of our desires, but intentionally choosing to not let some be active because we're not acting on them right now. Right? It doesn't make sense to have a huge amount of active emotional narratives that you're not doing anything with, right? So there is a real power of this, intentional emotional management that, it's a skill that you can learn. But from what I've discovered is that a lot of it's just like giving yourself permission to do it. Because people don't, like a lot of guys, especially who get into self-development work, self-awareness and stuff like that, they're very, very hung up on not repressing stuff, which is good because that'll become a problem. But then they think that means that they have to feel every emotion at every instant that they feel it, which is not true. It's not true. We all intuitively know this. Like if you're in the middle of giving a presentation at work and a fleeting thought pops into your head, we say, oh, okay, not right now. We're in the middle of something. We don't just, let that hijack our brain. So we all know we can do it in the short term, but you can also do it over longer periods of time. And again, it's just, you go back in and you always check things. You always make sure you have some inventory time where you go and you check all your emotional bottles. Make sure, oh, do I need to take this out now? Is this time for us to address this? Because it's real, right? And just the fact that you're consciously making continuous decisions about what narratives you're going to allow to be active in your life is huge. So, and if you really want to learn how to like respond to these things, because like the whole bottling process or whatever is kind of its own skill, like really it's a skill of self-talk. Are you able to respond rationally to your emotional feelings in a way that's compelling and motivating? And if you are, well, then you can do exactly what I'm describing here. And if you don't know how to do that, well, then you're going to want to get the Self-Mastery Club. You want to get in the Self-Mastery Club because then I have a ton of resources on how to practice emotional management, how to do journaling to facilitate all of this kind of work, how to, like the different mindset mechanics of like how emotion and intentionality and goal setting all work. If you want to get like the masterclass version of all that kind of shit, well, just check out the Self-Mastery Club. All you got to do is click the link in the description and, you can join the hundreds of other guys in there who are living on the front lines of life. And the way that they're doing it, it's by focusing. It's by saying, hey, I'm not going to do everything at once. I'm going to do this one thing. I'm going to do it super well. I'm going to make a permanent, meaningful shift in my life. And then guess what? I'm going to do that again. And then I'm going to do it again. And then I'm going to do it again. And then before long, I'm going to be living a life that I want. And that's all there is to it. So hopefully this gave some of you guys some permission and information that is useful to you. Ooh, yeah. I'll see you on the next one.